Must be slowing down a little bit here.
Jeremy?
I will call the September the 14th, 2021 meeting of the Christiansburg Town Council to order. And as we always do, we will hold a moment of reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll join me a moment of reflection and thought and concentration. Thank you. Thank you. If you'll rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to ask Councilman Steve Hopper if he will lead the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, I will open our public hearings tonight. Our first public hearing is a rezoning request by Deerfield Home Estates LLC to rezone tax parcel 496-A-68 through 73, total of 4.711 acres from A agriculture to R2 two-family residential to R1 single-family residential with conditions. The proposal was revised to construct 26 single-family detached dwellings. Property is designed as residential on a future land use map of the 2013 comprehensive plan. Is there anyone here to address this item? Steve, you know the drill.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and Steve Simone of Homeowners Association. If it pleases council, I may speak about the second item on our public hearing, which is conditional use permit for this property as well. They kind of go in tandem, if that's okay for Mayor. So the property we're looking at tonight is 4.7 acres on Wades Lane. As stated in the application, it's existing R2 zoning and agricultural zoning. The property we're looking at is right here. So again, to orient everybody, Christiansburg Elementary School, Wades Lane, AG Street kind of goes down this way to the north. Our client, Doug Rasmussen, is here tonight with Deerfield Estate Homes, LLC. Doug lives in this property, in this house right here, and owns this property here we're looking at tonight. Again, the proposal is to downzone the property currently, or downzone a portion of the property. A portion of the property is currently zoned. Andrew, could you go to the next sheet there? Is currently zoned R2, and a portion of it zoned agricultural. So the request is to take it to an R1 single-family detached zoning, and then ask for planned housing development for the project we'll look at here in just a few minutes. Again, the project is accessed off of Wades Lane. There's an existing home right here that would be taken down with the redevelopment of the property. You can see the property drops pretty heavily down to this corner. Down here you see this 2070 contour. That's the lowest point of the property. Currently, Doug and his wife Kristen have access off of AG Street right here, and also have access off of Wades Lane through this property as well. The next sheet, Andrew. Again, that's the zoning map. So again, you've got a little section of R2 and a little section of green that's agricultural.
Mr. Smothers, where's Freyland's houses? Are they on this map?
Which ones?
It's not close to.
That's not him.
That's not.
They're not where we're
So
close.
the Kensington
Okay.
development is
They're
over
down
by-
there.
by
Okay.
Middle School.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Next page here, please, Andrew. I'm sorry, one more. That's the future land use map that shows the property zone is, or planned for residential in the comprehensive plan. This is the overall layout of the property. We'll do a little zoom in here in just a second. So again, the proposal's for 26 lots. We'd have one access off of Wades Lane. There is no proposed access off of AG Street. While Doug and his wife do own a couple of properties in here, we didn't want to bring another access off of AG. It's a little smaller right of way in some of those areas, and you do have some sharp turns in that road. So the access off of Wades will be the access in and out of the property. As you can see, we have the cul-de-sac shown on this end, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. We do have publicly dedicated right-of-way that would tie out to this property line up against this adjacent property that would provide some access for future development of this off-site property here to our left. On the right-hand side, we have a T-turnaround that meets VDOT standards. There's only 2 lots that really are accessed off of this little section of stub road. In our initial application, we had a little bit different layout, which again, I'll speak about here in just a minute, and was revised after our first planning commission meeting. So we have this T turnaround in this area right here that really services these 2 lots and gives access for a school bus or fire truck or mail truck to turn around. And then you've got a future stub road here that would again access into the rest of Doug and Kristen's property for their house. Water and sewer we'll talk about here in just a second as well. Stormwater management for this property is proposed to be up in this area. So again, all the property drains to this location right here. From a grading perspective, we're going to pick the roads and the homes up, pipe them before they get off-site onto the adjacent property to get them into a stormwater management facility back here in the back of this property.
Mr. Simones,
Yes,
do you have a satellite picture that you can show Mr. Hopper then? Because I know where the primary school is and everything else, so you
Probably, I don't think I've got a satellite picture of this one, Ms. Hicks. Maybe go back to the first one, Andrew, if you wouldn't mind.
there you go,
Yeah.
we do.
So yeah, the Christiansburg Elementary School is right here. CVS, right in this area. That's the CVS right there, the new pharmacy. Kroger's across the street. The town's landfill back on this, just off the screen.
Thank you.
So this is a little bit more detailed version of the plan itself. So you see we have 26 lots. All of our lots now, I'm going to back up just a minute. In our first application that we presented with this rezoning request, our road A that we're calling this road right here was actually located right on the property line in a 50-foot right-of-way right here. We had a few lots that fronted onto Wades and then came down and entered the rest of the property in a similar layout of these lots up here. As we got that plan submitted, engineering staff looked at it, had a couple questions. One was a concern about potential site distance issues with our access point right here. As anybody that knows Wades, there's a little hump in the road right here. So we had some site distance concerns. We did go out and look at it, and we could get site distance to work. And for those of you that may not know site distance, when you come out to a stop sign, make sure you can see a certain amount in right and left before you turn out. And those distances are based on the speed of the road that you're turning onto. So we could get those to work, but it was going to require some extensive grading. So when we went back and looked at it, this layout actually worked better. We got better site distance. It took any potential single-family driveways off of Wades, which would have just created another conflict point. So we felt this is a much safer access. Engineering staff also had a concern. As I was explaining, the property all drains to this location right here. Currently, there's sewer, sanitary sewer in AG Street, but there's nothing here on the back side until you go all the way down, off-site down to Railroad Street. So that's a really long run of off-site property right there. So what we had proposed was each house would have an individual sewer pump system. We've done this on a couple locations in town and a couple subdivisions. Staff was concerned about long-term maintenance issues on that. So we went back and looked at it. What we've decided is we're going to put in a small pump station. One that the town gave us as a reference was the one on Walters. I believe it was on Walters. Kind of off of 114 near the New River Village subdivision. There's a smaller pump station that the town owns. So the idea is we would gravity sewer all these lots to a smaller pump station right here on what we're calling future lot 11 that we'll talk about here. That pump station would then pump into a force main, and tie into the existing gravity sewer line right here. So again, these plans have been resubmitted, staff has looked at these and has given us the general okay on this layout with the sewer. There were also some issues on the water line. Currently, there's a 6-inch water line in Wade's Lane. We were showing an 8-inch water line is required by town code to service these lots. And we did show a loop connection into AG Street. There's some existing pressure problems with this section of line. So we worked with staff and have decided that during the site plan review process, if this rezoning gets approved, there are a couple different options that we could make some connections or some adjustments to the flows coming into this line to help the fire flow. I believe Chief Hanks has been a part of those conversations as well with the engineering department. So there's enough water pressure to handle your house. But if there was a fire, there's a possibility there could be limited fire flow coming out of the hydrants. So that was one thing we'd spoken with engineering staff and the fire department about. After we've resubmitted this plan and had some additional conversations, and I'm sure staff could speak to it if necessary, felt comfortable with the project. If it moves forward, that we can find a way to increase some of those pressures going forward as we phase this development. So the development itself, single-family homes. These are not townhomes. These are not duplexes. These are single-family detached homes on individual fee-simple lots. So 26 single-family lots. The project may be built out in phases depending upon, if the market stays good right now, we can get the infrastructure in, if building costs come down a little bit. Possibly this could be built out in one phase, but it could be broken up into phases, the way the streets are set up right now. These would be, I'm sorry, Andrew, would you mind flipping to, yeah, thank you. These are some of the example homes that Doug is planning to build. So Doug will be doing the infrastructural work as well as the construction on these. So it was important, as council and planning commission have seen over the last 18 months, there have been several patio home developments that have come in. This isn't a patio home development. There would be some 1.5 story type product, but you could do some 2-story product in here as well. So it's not limited to a straight patio home where you're going to have a similar footprint on every lot. Doug's main point is to try to do a craftsman style development in here. Again, he lives right next door to this, so he wants to be sure the neighborhood's nice, it's a high quality, and it can hit a price point that maybe we're lacking right now. Try to hit it on the lower end of those 300 ranges instead of the $450,000, $500,000 homes that we're seeing in a lot of our newer subdivisions.
Trustee Moniz, on the two houses on the right, those houses will not have a garage, is that correct?
No, some houses may have garages, some may not. Would you mind jumping back real quick, Andrew? Sorry. So when we've looked at this, we've actually taken those 4 footprints and laid them out on different lots. So we know all 4 of those units can fit on some of the lots. Not every one will fit on every lot. You can see one example right here, a 28 by 48 foot footprint. So we've got that set, and the depth of some of these lots, most of these lots would allow those footprints to go in and have enough driveway length that you could get 2 cars off of the street as required by town code and not be backed up into the street or have to do on-street parking. If they don't have a garage, certainly if they've got a garage, they've got that option as well.
Can you stick on that sketch for a minute? I have a question too, Mr.
Yes,
Smith,
sir.
since you have that up.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about stormwater, so
Mm-hmm.
all the stormwater from this is going to be collected into a closed system, and it's
Yes, sir.
going to be conveyed to that parcel that's
Just off screen.
up
Yes, sir.
there.
Mhm.
So, and what's going to happen to it then? Is there a channel?
So
Is there an outfall?
there's a
or is that
natural
gonna-
channel that comes down that way, so we would have to hold it back, meet the energy balance equation, and do all of our stormwater management there in that area.
So there is an outfall there.
There is. Natural outfall that goes down. It hits a culvert on Railroad Street, goes across Railroad Street down into the railroad right of way in Crab Creek.
Is
Thank
that
you.
stormwater part of this property? The stormwater, where the
It's
stormwater
all owned
pond
by
is
the
gonna
same-
be?
It's owned by the same person, yes, ma'am. So there would be easements dedicated across, you can see here, a 20-foot stormwater access easement that would come off the stub road here to get down to maintain that. And then that would be an off-site stormwater management facility that would have easement in the HOA. The town would have all have easements and access to that.
And that entire development there is in the same watershed as the channel you'll be outletting
Yes, sir.
to. Thank you.
We do have, if you could jump back to that, to the next one, Andrew. As I stated, there will be a homeowners association that will be put into place for this, that would manage the stormwater facility. They may do exterior upkeep on the lots, as you see on a lot of subdivisions going in right now. We do have sidewalk proposed on both sides of the street, as well as sidewalk along our frontage of Wade's Lane. We did hear from a couple of our neighbors with the revised submittal, and I may let Andrew speak to this as well. There were a couple concerns the neighbors had. One neighbor, particularly on AG Street, that had written a letter to Planning Commission. Carol Edmonds, some of you all may know Carol, from Montgomery County. So Carol just had some questions she had reached out to me on. One of them was open space, and one of them was about buffering. So right now, open space wise, we have the school, diagonally across the street. These are lots, they're smaller lots, but they will have some backyard area. But what we talked about in Planning Commission is this future lot 11, this is not a buildable lot while that pump station's in service. The idea would be, since there is gravity sanitary sewer further downstream, if this back property ever develops and brings sewer up, there could be the potential that this pump station is abandoned and this property would gravity into the rest of that line into the town system. If that does ever occur and that pump station would go away, this could be a future buildable lot. But one thing we talked about with Planning Commission, and in the meantime, that we're not going to build a house on a lot with a pump station in the backyard, so this can be maintained as common open space for the neighborhood. The HOA, if they want to put a playground in or a little gazebo, something for the neighbors, we can reserve that area as a common open space for the neighborhood.
But that will be the responsibility of the HOA.
Of the HOA, yes, sir. If the HOA chooses not to do anything with it, Doug or whoever the management association would have to maintain the yard, keep the grass cut and everything on that. And then the town would certainly have easements and access to get into the pump station itself, because that would be a public pump station. Once it's designed and built, it would be turned over to the town. It would be operated privately. The other issue was the screening of these homes to neighbors. So there's a little section right here that's going to be open space with our just right in this area, just to the right of number 7, lot 7. We have our T turnaround. This lot here is owned as part of this property. This overall property is owned by Doug. These are really the only two adjacent properties that are not owned by client. There's an existing tree line in this area right here. So another thing we had talked to Planning Commission about, if council sees fit, we would be open to a condition that if any of this existing vegetation and tree line were to come out during construction, because it's a pretty good buffer in there, there are pine trees in there, so there's a good natural buffer today. If any of those needed to come out for grading or during construction, they'd be replaced. So we would keep a buffer in there. So that was a condition that Planning Commission had discussed as well.
That was one of the comments by Carol, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, refresh me on what exactly she said about the buffer zone.
Just asking if there were going to be any natural landscape buffers or planted landscape buffers as part of the plan. So while we were not proposing any additional buffering along this area, we did tell Planning Commission, since there's natural buffer here right now, if it's disturbed or removed during construction, it would be replanted. So again, we showed you the housing types. So again, that's hopefully going to hit some of that market. We've talked about the young families, the young professionals. We certainly feel that the residential use in this area meets the comprehensive plan and a lot of our future land use and planning goals. And I guess the last little piece I wanted to touch on is we did have a discussion at Planning Commission as far as this proposal versus a buy right proposal, if this whole property were to develop as an R2. So again, most of our property adjacent to us is that R2 zone, which would allow duplexes as a buy right use. So if we were to develop all those properties in R2, it could be approximately 6.8 units per acre developed out. We're currently showing about 5.5 units per acre. So if you kept the exact same, and what we wanted to do, and I'm sorry, I'm just throwing these numbers out, but what we wanted to do is actually go in and say, if we did this exact layout of the road stayed exactly as it was, and we did by right R2 development, just as this layout shows, we could come up with about 22 total units So 11 duplexes, 22 units, and what we're showing is 26. So we were trying to show a couple comparisons that we're not asking for, 3-4 times the density that we can get in on this property by right. We're really only asking in this layout for about 4 extra rooms. And one of which, wouldn't be built until that pump station was abandoned.
I have a question too.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'd see a road up there. I don't know if does that connect to anything right now? And then this one right here, who owns that piece of land right next to the house? Is that part of this house, so there is no way to connect that main road to the Aggies Street?
So this stub road would go into Doug's property that he owns right above. So
Okay.
his house is above that, so that would be an access into his property right now. The cul-de-sac itself would stub out. Andrew, could you go back one more, please? I'm sorry. So this property is owned by the Lancasters over here. So that house, that cul-de-sac would be built as a temporary cul-de-sac, and the right-of-way is the heavy dark line you see on both sides. So the right-of-way would actually be dedicated all the way up to the property line, and the cul-de-sac would be built right to the property line. So if this property were ever to develop, they would have the right to come in and tie into that road and make a connection into their property for future development. This stub road would go into Doug's piece the way currently kind of this driveway that he's got goes in right now. This little piece right here, while this house is part of this overall property, you can see there's not really, the way AG Street comes in, it kind of comes in and turns really quick. There's not a good, safe way to bring that road in at that location. You'd also knock out a house that's currently there that somebody's living in. So we didn't want to demo a house right here unnecessarily. So the way the road layout just worked, we're kind of dead-ending this section of the street right here. I guess at some point in the future, if any of these houses decided to redevelop, if those were bought up by a single investor, I guess there could be a possibility that road could tie through to AG. But again, it makes it a really strange layout of roads, because you start putting intersections of roads really close together, which from a transportation standpoint we try not to do. But as of right now, that would just dead end into that T turnaround. And because we only have 2 lots serviced off of that little stub road, engineering thought that was acceptable. That's the extent of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have, or if you got any later.
The only thing the town makes the quality of road that you're gonna put in, the standards, the town already has rulings on what kind of standard these roads are gonna be, all right? So
Yes,
they
sir.
won't fall apart tomorrow.
We hope not, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, these would be built to full town standards, the 30-foot street width, curb and gutter, sidewalks on both sides of the road, yes, sir.
You're currently not planning with the sidewalks, and you're not planning on any on-street parking, is that correct?
No, sir, it'll be built to town standards, but we're not counting any parking spaces on the road. Anybody can park on the street that's allowed in town if you're on a full 30-foot street, but we will be parking our residents in either driveways or garages.
And I guess this is more of a town question than anything else. That's on Wade's Lane.
Yes, sir.
I guess Randy and Andrew and Mike, are you back? Any thoughts? Is there room to widen Betty Drive? Huh?
You mean Wade's Lane?
Yeah, whatever, Wade's Lane. Is there room to widen it if we needed to? And I know a lot of the concerns, and I read one of them about, when the schools are in session, and, I've fought through one of those go by and pick up a kid type things when it was in session, and it was pretty tough. Now, I don't know whether widening the streets would help any. It would certainly help with the traffic flow, and I guess that's something we'd have to look at.
So I can answer a little bit of that, Mr. Mayor. Would you go back or go forward one here, please? So you can see here, so we're dedicating additional right-of-way with this project. You can see that right there. So that'll give, at least in our frontage, it'll give 25 feet off the center line of the road, which, a normal right-of-way is 50 feet. So we're dedicating, what we need to get our side of the road, our half of the road, up to town standard that would allow for expansion, you know, or widening in the future. And Andrew, would you bring up that PDF as well? So after planning commission, I asked Andrew, because we talked about the school, asked him if he would send me the school plans that were done, just so we could all look at them tonight, because I mean, I had all three of my boys went through the school, and you know, we spent many an hour, you know, sitting in the car rider line. So again, you know, right now, the way it was working, you know, you're coming up Wade's Lane, and people are stacking up here to make the loop through that back faculty lot, pick them up in the cafeteria and come out. We didn't design those plans, you see that up there. But as we were,
He said right behind you back there, bro.
I was gonna put a big red X on it, but it be here tonight. And maybe John could pipe in up as well. But my understanding is, you know, this would be the new drop-off, I believe, is that right, Andrew? So the new parent drop-off, you know, child drop-off will be coming in this access off of Betty Drive, looping up around and back. So I'm assuming this would be pretty much limited to just faculty and staff in that area. So a lot of those concerns we all had when we were waiting, or certainly residents trying to come up and down that road, will be remedied by this new drop-off location once the school improvements are complete.
That is a mess right now. I know, I've been by there several times in the morning, and they're backed up all the way to the Pizza Inn, you know?
All right.
Good presentation.
Thank you. Anyone else to address this issue? So you did A and B, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns on the Deerfield Home Estates, either the rezoning request of conditional use permit? Jeremy? Yes, sir.
Jeremy Williams. I actually live right across the street from this area, and I'm all in favor of it. Have no issues whatsoever. I think it's going to be a nice subdivision. I came to the planning commission meeting with the request that if that street, as soon as that street's added on Wade's Lane, that maybe a three-way stop could be added. Because I don't know how familiar you are with Wade's Lane, but it is a nightmare for the speeders that come through there. And a three-way stop would slow everybody down coming both ways. So that was my request.
That's really good.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Anyone else? John Neal, you want to defend yourself on anything? No. You're good. You're good. All right, then I will close these two portions of the public hearing. We have a conditional use permit for R3 multifamily dwelling district uses in the B3 general business district by Bruce A. Moses, owner, on behalf of Brian A. Rice, applicant, at 975 Redford Street, tax parcel 525-A-19. The proposal is to construct 5 townhome units. The property is designated as business commercial on the future land use map, the 2013 comprehensive plan. Is there anyone here to address this issue?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Appreciate your time this evening. I'll be a lot briefer than
You're John Neal with.
Gay Neal.
Thank you. Okay.
Just very briefly, we're talking about this parcel right here on Radford Street, just actually down from our office. You have a residential house. You're looking at it on the left, and on the right is Robert's Muffler. There's residential subdivision behind it. We're requesting a CUP to allow 5 townhomes for residential use here. And there was a house there a long time ago. I think Andrew can slide to the zoning map there. And that's where you can see B3. We really have R2 all behind the property. That is all I have. Like I said, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Now go over that again. What are you gonna put in there again?
We're proposing 5 townhomes.
5 townhomes.
So it's a total of 10 units?
Yes, sir. And there's just a basic sketch of the layout. One entrance off of Radford Street into the parking area. We would have garages. We did have a little graphic there showing the example homes as well.
These are 1 and 2 bedroom?
Is that 2, 3 there?
Okay.
So no, they're not 10 units, it'd be 5 units.
5 units, yes.
5 units.
And it's a down zoning from business to residential.
What
There
was
a question at there was a question at the planning commission about
Versus heat.
sidewalk. Sidewalk would be installed along
So will the houses be looking at the street again? Can you show me that map really quick?
So actually, this is rotated, so Radford Street is here on the right.
Oh,
So yes, it'd be facing out toward Radford.
I think it
So-
might upgrade the street a little bit. Some of that area is not that good looking.
So clarify for me, John, how many front doors you gonna have in this thing?
5.
5 front doors. Okay.
Were you required to have a stormwater drainage?
Yes, ma'am, and that's part of the preliminary planning that we did. We went out there and did some surveying, covered actually, if you're aware of that property, it actually slopes up pretty significantly from the street up to the residential neighborhood behind it. So we've done some surveying and design for these townhomes, parking lot, and then the stormwater management area will be down here in the bottom right as you're looking at this.
Very similar to the, I guess, the apartments that are up off of Radford Street. There's a stormwater down,
Yes, sir.
similar to that.
Much smaller scale.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Okay.
What's the stormwater outfall for that? That's a shoulder section through there.
There's a
Sir.
roadside ditch there, going down to Silver Lake. And off down.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. So, having heard all the questions and comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. Council will act on this in the next 2 weeks, and I will remind council that we got, Ms. Edney sent 3 public comments to us late this afternoon. So if you would take time to read those and understand what people are asking or the questions are asking on it. We'll move into the consent agenda. The consent agenda tonight is approval of the minutes of August 24th, 2021, recognition of a proclamation recognizing September 17th through the 23rd as U.S. Constitution Week, resolution recognizing October 3rd through the 9th as Fire Prevention Week, resolution in support of the FY 23-24 VDOT Revenue Sharing Program funding applications, resolution in support of the FY 23-24 VDOT Transportation Alternative Program funding applications, approve personal property tax relief percentage for calendar year 2021 at 28.3%, approve correction to the 3-month lease approved October 24th to Neuro Valley Unwired Ventures, LLC, of space of 4 municipal water tanks. Correction reflects the elimination of wording per month in the amount to a one-time payment for the entire lease. Cancel public hearing September 28th and reschedule public hearing for October the 12th for amendments to the planned commercial development in the B3 General Business Zoning District at 2705 Market Street Northeast by NRV Marketplace LLC to allow multiple family residential uses, increased building height, reduced on-site green space, and reduced residential parking requirements on tax parcel 436-5-1. The applicant revised its proposal requiring a new public hearing. The property is designated business commercial on future land use map of the 2013 comprehensive plan.
I make a motion to consent the approved consent agenda as
Okay.
it states.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Councilman Bishop,
Aye.
Councilwoman Hicks,
Aye.
Councilman Hubbard,
Aye.
Councilman Showalter,
Aye.
Councilman Stipes.
Aye.
That is 5-0. Thank you. We have apparently no introductions or presentations tonight, Mr. Wingfield, is that correct? We'll move into the citizens' comments where your citizens are free to address council on matters of issue or concern. You will come to the podium, name and address, and make your comments to the chair, and you have 3 minutes. The who? I'm sorry.
The wall on Cambria.
Thank you.
That's on the.
That's a little out of our jurisdiction there in Merrimack Creek.
It's been a while. But, and I don't have a problem with the town being half on it, But I would like to remind you of the case in 2017, right here on Pepper Street, where you had another retaining wall that was in disrepair, falling down, that abutted the public sidewalk. And you repaired it, because I got a copy of the lien, if y'all would like to look at it.
We're familiar.
Copies of it.
Familiar with it.
But you took a lien out against that guy's house, and you spent $110,826 repairing that wall. But in this case, you're gonna pay half. And I can tell you, I don't know how often you all drive down here, but there's a lot of retaining walls down there that are about to fall down. I was called, but you should think about that. And like I said, I don't have a problem saying that. If you pay half for him, the next wall in here that falls down, you can pay half to repair it up. Because you need to set a precedent and stick with it. One time we treat a situation this way, next time we treat it a different way, next time we treat it different. That's all I've ever asked for y'all, is just be fair.
Okay. Well, I think, the difference between those two, Chris, is the wall on Pepper Street was on private property, and the man could not afford to pay it. We tore it down, and we did take a lien on his property. So the one I think in Cambria Street is, it's kind of jointly in the right of way, part on his land, part on ours. And any future ones we do would have to look at who owns the property. Is it joint? Is it right of way? Is it whatever?
Well, I asked Mr. Mayor, I asked the county, I asked courthouse when I was down there getting copies of the plats and I even asked Randy, I'm like, so what is the definition of right? And all of them say, well, it's kind of depends. Sometimes it could be this, sometimes it's not a definitive term, like 20 feet from here, 10 feet from here, 5 feet from here. It's basically, what I got from the court is, whatever the deed says, and whatever the government says, that's what it is.
Thanks, Chris. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, just
Randy,
let me just clarify what I consider public street right of way is basically the front edge of the adjoining property line against the town street ownership versus the private property ownership. Like I say, for public street purposes, if you're using it in the term of public street right of way.
Okay.
Can you explain that to me again, Randy? Because
The public street right-of-way line would be basically the front property line between the street and the adjoining property. It'd be the common line between the two.
If there's not a dedicated right-of-way.
Well, if it is, actually, it would be a dedicated right-of-way if it's a public street.
If it's not, yeah, but if in absence of a dedicated right-of-way,
It could be an easement.
it's a property line. Is that right?
If in absence of,
A recorded right-of-way, in absence of a recorded right-of-way, then the town's interpretation is the right-of-way goes to the property line.
correct.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay.
And Randy, can you weigh in on the retaining wall reserve? I think this is an initiative we started 2 years ago by
We did,
recognizing there's some issues
we started
with
the
these walls in
fund.
Cambria
Yes,
and around town.
we
And
did
I
put,
think Sam championed that,
yes.
right, Sam?
we did put a fair amount of money in the reserve a couple of years ago. We actually added to the reserve a little bit this year.
Which is what we've been trying to do a little bit every year, recognizing there will be this issue in the future.
Okay.
But in regards to the handling, I do plan on handling the same. If the wall is on private property, I'm going to consider it the private property's responsibility. If it's the town's property, then I'd consider it the town's responsibility. If it's split between us and the property owner, I think I'd look at it that way, that it's partially each of our responsibilities.
Okay.
so I was doing a little bit of studying and being in real estate and stuff. We got apps and we got a whole bunch of other stuff that actually kind of tells us where the lines are and things like that. as far as the pictures go for both of the properties, they are very much similar. The property line and everything else is just, you know, the walls are very similar when it comes down to both of them. As far as the one being a little bit higher than the other one, I can agree with that. And I don't disagree with us helping with this, because that's not my thing, but I kind of have to agree with Mr. Walls. I think there has to be a way that we can make it fair for everybody. Because the property on Pepper Street, the value of that property, tax value is like $103,000. We have a lien against this house for $110, and I believe the guy passed away recently too from COVID. So, this is something that I am concerned, because the reality is, even if the other one that fell down recently was owned by us, it was also a prescribed easement that's how I believe, because it was used to retain the wall or the dirt for this property.
It's just the Pepper Street or?
The one on Cambria.
Cambria, okay.
And so I'm just saying, I'm not against this, but I do have to agree that we have to keep it fair for everybody.
Like I say, basically the way I plan on handling it, as I stated, is if the wall is on private property, I'd consider it the private property's responsibility. If it's on town property, it's town ownership, I'd consider it town responsibility. If it's a situation where it is split, then I could kind of consider it basically joint responsibility.
I believe they were both on private property. From the drawings and everything else that I had.
Our engineering department looked at it, and they basically took surveys to take a look and found that it was basically the wall split the right-of-way line and the front property line.
Even though you had knowledge that this wall was ready to come down years ago, correct?
I don't think it was imminent to fall years ago. I think the wall up here on Pepper Street, myself, engineering, and building inspections looked at both of these walls. The wall up here was clearly very imminent, the way it was leaning. I don't think the wall in Cambria was necessarily imminent the way the wall on Pepper Street
It was assisted by a tree that blew over.
That's
and
actually what happened is during a storm, a tree
the backside
fell
of it
over
out.
and fell on the wall and knocked it over.
Why isn't our insurance paying for it?
Because it's considered an act of God.
And so our insurance will obviously pay for half, right?
I can't guarantee you that. I think they're probably going to consider it an act of God.
Well, when there is an act of God, in most cases, they also pay for it. I just had a tree fell down in one of our rentals recently, and they consider it an act of God, and it was on the neighbor's property, and it fell down on our property, and guess who had to pay for it? We had to pay half, well, our insurance went against the other insurance, and each insurance had to pay half.
We have submitted it to our insurance.
Oh, okay. So can we wait for that response?
Actually, the response was that they wouldn't fund it. I can, pursue that further with them if you like.
Okay.
Brandy, when was the wall on Cambria Street built? Can you
I
guesstimate it?
I think it's autographed by
Is that when Cambria was?
It was not in the town of Christiansburg when it was
It was
built.
Cambria.
It was Cambria.
Correct.
So a long time ago.
I think the method that you've got proposed, I think that's a good one and it's a fair one.
What is the method again?
The method was if it is owned by a private organization, a private owner, they pay for it. If it's half on private land and half on town land, then we split it.
Well, when I was looking at the Pepper Street project, that was never agreed by the owner of that property to pay for the 110 or whatever that amount was. And it was also, his signature was in none of the paperwork.
I
Well,
think
he's passed, right?
I think there's
Well,
a very
this just
extensive.
happened.
I think there's a very extensive file of correspondence of letters that went to him, and I think his comment was, "I don't have the money to pay for it, but I'd like to get it done."
Right.
So
I believe that.
I
We
remember
could have
that
just
cor-
left it undone. We could have, but we took the initiative.
Well,
to
it was a
fix
safety issue.
It
It would have
was.
probably killed somebody or certainly seriously blocked up Pepper Street for a long time.
This was
Well-
a huge issue. And unfortunately, he's passed, right?
I don't
He
know.
did- he did.
I believe.
He has. I knew him. Knew
I
his
think, I
family.
believe he did. I know his father passed away like in 2010, and I believe he passed away just recently from COVID.
Okay.
As far as the reserve fund, how much money do we have in the reserve fund for the sidewalk stuff?
I want to say around 180,000. That's just kind of a off the top of my head guess.
180,000 at the end of last fiscal year, and then we added 180 with this year, so that's 362,000.
So that doesn't necessarily have to come out of the general fund if we're using it from the reserve fund, correct?
Yes, but that comes from the general fund.
That is part of the general fund.
So you don't have that separated from the general fund?
Yeah,
Yeah, we do.
yeah, it's a reserve. And I think that's why we're so fortunate we do have reserves set aside for instances like this, because we know sooner or later it's going to happen. And you know, this is better than having to go through a tax referendum or a referendum to expend taxes out of the general, or monies out of the general fund. When we have the reserve, it's like we have reserves for emergency buildings, we have reserve for the future park, we have reserves for any number of things, and these are dedicated reserves. So we can't just reach into those dedicated reserves and pull monies out to do something else. These are specifically for those items.
Which are problems we've identified over the years.
So with this reserve fund, can we also look, since we are wanting to prevent this from happening in the future, can we kind of try to take the initiative to start looking into some of the other walls and see how we can get them repaired?
Staff's done that.
That's been done.
Yeah, we've looked at it. We looked at it several years ago.
Inventory.
Well,
Yeah,
It is-
there is
I will say
some,
that-
like the one at the county building that is falling apart, and it's not far away from where this one was.
That's been replaced, that.
And no, it's not.
Where
The
the
one with the
bus-
steps, the one where they're gonna be selling it for the busing.
At
Okay.
the
Replace
at the
some of that.
schools,
Right?
No,
we'll take a look at it. I do consider the wall program an ongoing thing too, though. I mean, we do go out periodically and look at these walls.
Okay.
Now,
I would
Jordan,
really
you can-
like us to see,
You can
that
propose
wall.
during the next budget, you know, I'm sure it'll probably be close to $1 million, you know, capital improvement, where if council approves it, we can go in and spend $1 million and tear down all these walls and rebuild them. He could propose that during the
I
next
would like to
budget cycle.
see if there is some of those that actually need repairing. Like I personally feel like the county, one, maybe that's something that they can take on themselves and start fixing it before they fall down.
Okay. That's certainly food for thought,
Mhm.
but if I know how the county and businesses and property owners think, they're not going to fix it until it falls down. I mean, that's,
Not necessarily.
well, okay. Moving on, we'll go to committee reports. Mr. Stipes?
Yes. Have a update on 3 items that the street committee feels council would be interested to know about. Our town staff and the police department have some really good, low-cost, high-benefit improvements to make through town, just to make council aware. The first one we're looking at is for the new store, Cottage Farms General Store, that is along Cambria Street there, near the railroad, Montgomery Street intersection. Basically, there's a request for on-street parking there, and the on-street parking, without going into a lot of detail, basically, the town staff has gone out there and visited it and checked intersection site distances, and there are several benefits to providing the on-street parking. Not only do you have on-street parking for a new business, but you also have traffic calming. There's still a 12-foot lane, or 12-foot lane in each direction, which is the same width as an interstate lane. So there's plenty of there's plenty of width there to put the on-street parking. We'll also have a calming effect on traffic through there. But just to make council aware that the street committee reviewed that and approved the staff to go ahead and implement that. There'll also be a crosswalk there, Andrew, that will also be a benefit for pedestrian safety. So it's sort of placemaking here and helping a new business out. So we'll go through all three items if council has any questions.
Let me cut in on that one first. I talked to the owner last week, and she would be very supportive of putting that in there. And you know, there's not really, unless you park over there where the church is, there's not a lot of parking right there. And so it just makes it better for her, and I think that would really, really make her appreciate the town, what we're trying to do.
And I think it demonstrates our town is increasing, our town staff is increasingly responsive to requests. If we can find a way to say yes and help solve several issues at one time, so.
I love this.
Okay. So that's the first one. The second one is intersection striping plan at the corner of Depot and Stone Street. And if you're not, sort of show where the Depot Street Park is, Andrew. It's that really a free-for-all intersection there. Most everyone here is very familiar with it. The yellow lines there are going up to Kroger. That's the back door to Kroger. And then Water Street, there's heavy parking on there with the increased use of Depot Street Park. The town staff has come up with what the street committee feels is an outstanding opportunity to improve vehicle and pedestrian safety at the intersection, both by defining lanes on Water Street and Stone Street, sort of let people know where they're supposed to be when they're coming through there, putting some crosswalks in, and providing a safe harbor for pedestrians on the corner where the park is. Andrew, sort of go around there, right there. So and anyone that's walked down there knows what a free-for-all it is, and the town staff has come up with this plan to sort of define places that people are supposed to be, and just driving there and seeing this is going to slow traffic down, I think, in that area when it's sort of busy there. So this is, the street committee applauded staff for finding a really cost-effective way to improve safety at that intersection. The third one is a situation that the police department has been made aware of, and anyone in the audience who is watching that has school-age kids at CES or CPS notices this intersection is Depot Street and Depot Street, where Betty Drive comes down from CPS. During school hours, there is heavy queuing coming down the hill off of Betty Drive, and heavy queuing, and the queuing is largely as a result of people trying to make left turns there. And you know how it's trying to make a left turn there with a busy time of day, and you're heading into the left turn lanes for a Depot turning onto North Franklin Street. The police department reached out to Montgomery County Schools. Montgomery County Schools has been out there and confirmed the police department's recommendation is to disallow left turns there just during school, those prime time hours, 7:30 to 8:30 and 3:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. And they've already had portable, changeable message boards out there, just letting people know the no left turns. But the recommendation of the street committee was to go ahead and put signage up, and hopefully that will help the queuing situation. But again, this has all been coordinated. It was initiated by the police department and coordinated with the schools, and that's the third item the street committee reviewed. And again, staff's to be applauded for being proactive and so forth. So, Mr. Bishop, did I miss anything?
No, you did fine.
Okay.
So if I'm gonna leave school and if I was gonna make a left-hand turn, I need to go up the hill and then go around, is that right?
You can go someplace other than left, Steve, wherever you want to go.
Mr. Stives, couple things here. On the one over here, is there any way that we can make that sign, instead of being two signs, can we make it as part of just one sign?
What would be the benefit of that?
just because it helps like comprehend what you're trying to tell people instead of being like two signs, the one sign on the bottom, if it's separated from the other one, you're just not understanding what that means.
They'll be together, they'll be on the same post. And we also tonight decided to put some orange flags on top, just to use typically when you have a new sign that you know is, you want to make sure that it's seen and people are noticing a new sign. So we'll have some orange flags on top of it just to bring attention to it. And Chief Sisson is here. I don't know, the enforcement would probably be delayed a little bit while people get used to it. I don't know, you can speak to that, but, well, I won't speak for you, but.
Yes, sir. I mean, we give acclimation periods for new signage, just like we do on highways where we reduce fees.
Right.
We're trying to get ahead of that proactively and put our signage out, getting people accustomed to making that right turn opposed to the dangerous left turn that we've had issues with the accidents over the year. And it's been a problem we need to fix, and we think this is a fix this issue.
I'd really like to see an electronic sign off of the side until people get, for at least a couple weeks, to see if we can kind of tell people what they have to do. Yes.
So,
Oh, it is?
do you think that the Montgomery County school system will be proactive enough, because they know which kids are picked up, to send a flyer home to the parents about this change in the left between 7:30 and 8:30, or and 3:30 and 2:30 and 3:30, or whatever it is? Have they been approached about doing that?
Yes, they're aware once we erect signage, they're going to send it out through their Peachtree system to every parent.
Okay.
Yeah. They're not sending papers out anymore, but it would be good to, it will be good to have that in the main site for our website. I know it will probably be somewhere in there, but it would be good to have it on the main page. And then the other one about Depot, can you go back, Andrew, really quick? Is there any way to have a sidewalk up there closer to the bridge on the right side?
We discussed that. There are plans, on the sidewalk. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Hicks. No, that was a separate
Staff
issue.
did look at that in the field, and we don't think there's enough room on the shoulder to put in a 4-foot minimum, basically that's the minimum ADA accessible sidewalk. We don't think there's enough room to put that basically between the striping and the guardrail.
Well, we know from past experience, people don't seem to pay attention to white striping on like this bump out zone here. Can we go ahead and paint it yellow?
Actually, the orange dots
Yeah.
on there are delineators that basically they're the
They light
plastic cross-striped black and yellow, like I say, signage.
Like a bollard type?
Kind of like a bollard, but these are breakaway, so that should deter that.
Okay.
It's the same thing that we used in front of McDonald's on North Franklin Street before we disallowed those left turns out of there. They're vertical, they're vinyl, sit on a rubber bubble that's mounted to the pavement. They don't hurt your car if you hit them, but they're a reminder that you're not supposed to be there.
And we have plenty in stock, right?
Well, yeah, they will be replaced from time to time, but again, it's a low.
I just know.
It's a relatively low-cost improvement that I think that the street committee feels was very beneficial in this area.
Is there any way to at least fix the potholes right there? To make it,
Excuse me, what was that?
is there a way to at least cover some of the potholes on the side? Because I know I go through there all the time. And I can tell you, I know from water damage too, because they obviously that creek. Well, you used to have a lot of problems in the past. Ever since we fixed and spent all the money on it, it's really nice. It has done a really good job with the storm water too. But as far as like on the side of the rail right there, is there any way to even put some concrete and just kind of fix and make it part of the, at least make it look like a sidewalk?
I actually thought about possibly saw cutting that cross-striped area because it is asphalt right now. I guess we could take a look at, right now, that's probably the roughest area there is, though, and it's not really going to be part of the travel way. You know, we could take a look at repaving it, although we were simply planning on, I think, restriping it. We might do a little bit of patchwork for the restriping, but we weren't planning like major repaving.
Well, a small repair will do, at least will help.
We'll take a look at, like I say, maybe minor repairs with the striping.
Because right now it looks like, you know, you have a walking stripes, but then when you get to the other side, it's like, I don't know. How big is that from the stripes to the rail right now? Is that like couple feet or is that 3 feet?
2 to 3 feet, I would guess.
Okay, thank you.
No more discussion. I have one brief report on the Virginia Tech Montgomery Executive Airport. There was a record this month in August set for jet fuel sales. Business is picking up at the airport. A lot of people flying in that didn't before. And August was the most jet fuel, which is basically the main revenue stream for the airport in history, is the most jet fuel sold last month. So things are trending up there. Football season's helping that, of course. But the benefits of an extended runway are benefiting everybody, I guess the business community. Thank you.
All right. I don't have, Mr. Shaw says we don't have finance. Mr. Bishop says we don't have a report from central business. Mr. Hopper, recreation?
No, I have nothing.
Okay.
Well, you know, the only thing I would want to say is a 8-mile walk that was going to be this coming weekend on the 18th had been canceled. So I think he's already put out flyers and everyone knows that.
Okay, very good. We'll move into discussion and action by mayor and council. A conditional use permit for a commercial auto garage at 1250 Roanoke Street, tax parcel 498-7-16A and 17A and 498A-113C by Glenwood Martin on behalf of Twin Oaks Properties LLC. Property is designated business, commercial, and future land use map, the 2013 comprehensive plan. This public hearing was held 2 weeks ago, and I don't think anyone opposed it. So, council, do I have an action?
I would move to approve the conditional use permit for the commercial auto garage for 1250 Roanoke Street.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussions? Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Councilman Bishop?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hicks?
Aye.
Councilman Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilman Showalter?
Aye.
Councilman Stipes?
Aye.
That is 5-0. Thank you. Now.
So I can move in tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Bye.
Community Development Block Grant 2021 Annual Action Plan. Is that Randy, Andrew, combination thereof?
We've talked about it before.
We have to,
This is a public hearing that we had last week,
and there's no,
Yeah, it's the annual action plan, we haven't had any public comments.
okay.
I so move to approve the Community Development Block Grant for 2021 Annual Action Plan.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Councilman Bishop?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hicks?
Aye.
Councilman Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilman Showalter?
Aye.
Councilman Stipes?
Aye.
It's 5-0. Approve resolution to approve budget amendment number 2 for repair of retaining wall on Cambria Street Northeast.
Make a motion that we approve the resolution to approve budget amendment number 2 for repair of retaining wall on Cambria Street.
I would second that.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
I guess no way we can look and see if the insurance will pay for it before it comes out of the general fund.
We certainly will try.
Okay, thank you.
Try again, right?
Yes.
Sure. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Councilman Bishop?
Aye.
Councilwoman Hicks?
Aye.
Councilman Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilman Showalter?
Aye.
Councilman Stipes?
Aye.
5-0, thank you. Approve resolution to appropriate the funds per budget amendment number 2.
Make a motion that we approve the resolution to appropriate the funds per budget amendment number 2.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? And I'm certain if our insurance company were to reimburse us, it would go back into that
January.
Reserve, reserve account for?
Correct.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Councilman Bishop. Councilwoman Hicks.
Aye.
Councilman Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilman Showalter.
Aye.
Councilman Stipes.
Aye.
5-0, thank you. Next is discussion of increased wages for part-time positions. Is that Randy?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously, brought this before you last meeting in regards to specifically issues we've had at the Aquatic Center for hiring lifeguards. It's definitely been a struggle for us. I think everybody's had problems hiring the last year. I don't think it's a secret. Lower paying jobs, it's just tough to get applicants. If you look at prevailing rates in the area, Virginia Tech's going to a $15 minimum. A lot of the fast foods are moving to a $15 minimum. I have, I guess, two proposals before you. One would simply hire a full-time lifeguard at $15 an hour, which would provide benefits. That would be basically a zero impact on the budget because we would simply shift wages to salary and benefits. Obviously, we would lose a few hours that way because of the benefits. But that's one proposal. And the second proposal I had before you is consideration of potentially moving the whole salary scale a little bit. Obviously, that has long-term budget implications, and that would be a major budget impact. If you'd want to take longer to consider either option, if you have any questions or any type of discussion, we'd be glad to try to answer questions. Got Alicia Dawes here, our Human Resources Director, and of course Terry Caldwell, Aquatics Director, and Val's available for any financial questions if you have any.
So when you say change the salary scale, we're not talking about just the Aquatic Center, but we would be talking about...
That's correct. During our discussions of this, we would have concerns that if we moved the lifeguards to $15 an hour and we didn't move other positions to $15 an hour, what implications that would have for employee morale and...
I agree. Yep.
And it is a problem even hiring those lower paying positions too. I think we're down about, 23 or 24 on Public Works right now. And that's with the salary increases we did last year, which was meant to try to address that. Obviously, we did that with the budget adoption last spring. One thing that occurred basically in June, the state gave a 5% across the board increase to the state. And that kind of basically put us behind the state a little bit again. And like I say, with the past year, the way the hiring has been, I'm hopeful that maybe with the change in the decreased benefits, that might increase hiring. Although I'll tell you, I don't think that people who are deliberately maybe not working for extra benefits are necessarily the type of people we get applied to be lifeguards at the Aquatic Center either. Typically that's usually younger college type people. And also I'll point out that having them work on Saturdays is an issue. A lot of them, if we force them to work on Saturdays, they'll quit and go find another job. That's part of the reason I think the full-time position is worth consideration.
So you asking for one or the other or both?
I'm open to both. I think the full-time position might need it either way. Like I say, in order to have Saturday coverage, again, I think if we force many of our part-time lifeguards to work on Saturday, I think a lot of them will leave. And we are very down on lifeguards right now. I think we're at 10 now, and we're normally at 45. And obviously, that's majorly limited our operations of the Aquatic Center.
Okay, so you were talking about 5% increase on the state, but if you're looking at a $15 an hour, that's 75 cents increase. That would be $15.75 that those employees will be making.
I don't
It's
think
not state employee.
we're not going in.
But I'm just saying, if we're comparing to, I think that for the lifeguards, I think it will be necessary to definitely stick with something larger than $15 or probably $16. Most likely like $17 because of the training. But that's just me, because there is so many other things that we have to make sure that they're following. It's not a simple job that you can come in and get into, just like working at Kroger's, making $15 an hour.
And one suggestion Terry Caldwell made is actually maybe having 2 sets of lifeguards, that there's a higher standard that would be required for the competition pool, just because of the, I guess, rather rigorous requirements for that. You have to be able to dive down to the bottom of the pool and...
For a 17-foot deep end,
Yes.
retrieve a 10-pounder.
Yes. And that's required across the board for all our lifeguards right now. We could have a classification that you only basically meet the minimum Red Cross standards for lifeguards if you're going to be in the leisure pool or the therapy pool, and have possibly a higher rate for people who are trained for the competition pool.
So obviously, you had a discussion which I wanted you to take back to Terry, and you guys discussed that, moving up to $15 an hour. The issue is the morale and other town employees who aren't making $15 an hour. Is that correct?
I think that would be a
And that would
concern.
be an issue, and I agree with that. So you guys did have that discussion, and you're with HR as well, and your move forward is the full-time position. That's what you've come full circle back to us.
I would recommend that, although I would, I think, at least long-term, consider the possibility of moving the pay scale, because I do think you may have some morale issues.
Okay. So
Right.
we've done 2 pay scale studies in the past 5 years.
Yes.
I mean, hiring one full-time person, that will do the trick. I mean, to me, that,
The trick, it would help during the day.
Triage.
Currently, we're operating 84 hours a week, so that would give us a 40-hour position that we could depend on during the day when the typical college or high school student is in school. We would have that person. Right now, we have the office managers lifeguarding, Christine lifeguarding, her office staying at 7. So we, all the full-time staff is currently lifeguarding.
But this is a break even. This is a break even, doesn't need a budget amendment,
the
just
one-
to do this one
The
position.
one full-time lifeguard position wouldn't need a budget amendment, no adjustments. We would simply transfer wages over to salary and benefits.
Okay. My question would,
Like I say, you sort of lose a few hours that way because of the benefits,
right.
but we're not getting the hours now because they're vacant.
My question would be, why don't we do a budget amendment and do 2, 3, or 4 of these full-time positions if that's what's really needed? And in 6 months, are we going to be coming back asking for this
What we
again?
don't know is what is happening.
Right.
We don't have the golden wand to say, are we gonna be in the same situation
Next year. Mm-hmm.
Will it change in 6 months? We don't know, but this is something that we've never been confronted with. Is wage the issue? Is it something else? What is it? So I don't have the wand to say, if we do all of the things we're coming and asking for, are we all of a sudden gonna fill the aquatic center with 45 lifeguards?
Right.
And here it is, I guess, when you talk about the full-time position. One of the things that I was reading the other day too was that a lot of people are moving away from full-time positions because they want to have something else to do. They may want to work 4 or 5 hours, and they may want to do something else with the rest of the time. So I don't even know if that's also the answer. Like you're saying, we don't even know what next year is gonna do. And as far as knowing what we went through, even with having a family, if you wanted to have a position, let's first say I wanted to be a lifeguard. I have 4 children. They were not, in school. And some of the time that they were in school for like 4 hours. So I will be able to have a part-time job instead of a full-time job. And I'm just making an example, And so I know what you're saying, but I do believe that one full-time job will help you. Mostly because maybe they'll be able to work some of the other hours that the other people will not be able to make up with because they're in school or some other things. I guess my other question is for Randy. We have a contract with Virginia Tech we already had it for 10 years. You sent me that contract the other days for another 10 years. We are getting $250,000 a year from them. But yeah, this year we're spending like $3.3 million on the aquatic center. And then how come is it that we are paying a COLA last year of $10,000 to Virginia Tech Airport, but we are not asking for a COLA from Virginia Tech. Because the reality is, last year, Virginia Tech closed their pools, if I'm not correct.
Mike?
I may be correct about this. I believe they closed the pools at Virginia Tech, and therefore we had to have the students here, and because we had a contract, a lot of our residents in the town of Christiansburg were unable to use the pool. So is there something that we can address as far as maybe even going to Virginia Tech and saying, hey, can you help us, since we are obviously using the Olympic pool mostly for them, and like you guys are saying, it needs a higher standard of lifeguards.
So is the airport Virginia Tech,
No.
other than name for, I think we discussed
We're
this.
one-fourth owner of that
yeah.
airport.
It's not purely Virginia Tech.
No,
That's an
it's-
authority of sorts.
One-fourth equal owners with Virginia Tech, Montgomery County, and the town of Blacksburg.
Terry, let me address the Saturday working hours for the student lifeguards. You say they would probably quit. Do you think they would be more active or more inclined to work if they had a shift differential for the weekends?
It may be, Mayor. You know, if, an example that I've been kind of tossing around in my head is, if I'm on Virginia Tech campus and they're willing to pay me $15 an hour for any job on the campus, why in the world would I get in my car and drive to the Christiansburg Aquatic Center? Right? So I kind of weigh that out, trying to think, you know, in my family or what makes sense. I would have to have a true love for water and lifeguarding to do it, right? And a true passion to save people's lives. So then you're a first responder. Right? So when we went to the table and the four of us sat down and reviewed this, you know, I think that we all are in agreement. The lifeguards pay a $15 an hour, maybe spot on. Maybe what we need to do. But then what happens across the board? We have a situation here in the town where we have positions that are not, you know, making that. And so is it fair? I think we have to review that, and we have to look at our wage structure right now. There's a change. There's a change going on. Things are happening. You know, 3 years ago, I never would have thought that I would come in front of you and ask for a $15 wage for never in a million years.
I guess
You know, when we went to 10, that's only a couple years ago, right? We thought that was pretty big.
Well, I think my question to you was not so much paying $15 an hour, but, you know, your 10 core lifeguards now, would they be more inclined to work on the weekends if it were, let's say, they had a $2 an hour bonus for addition for working the weekends?
They may.
I don't know. I mean,
I think that,
You know, Virginia Tech games are big.
I know.
They all want to be off. They don't want to work for the Tech games, and, you know, we'll have a few that we beg, and they'll, you know, come forward and do it for us, but,
well, it's just food for thought, Terry.
Well,
I mean,
something-
I do agree with you, Michael Barber, as far as that goes.
I think Terry
We
can,
should try something like that.
Terry can
'cause
take that back and make a recommendation to us at a later date. Terry, what percentage of lifeguards 3 years ago were university students? If you can just throw that out, a
I'd say
guesstimate.
75%.
That's a
Wow.
lot. And since the students have just recently returned to campus, I sort of see your point. We don't know what's going to happen next year. Everything, and we're slowly still returning back to normal. So what action do you need from us for this position? Since it's been already before us, it's now come back before us, what can we do?
It would take council authorization to create another full-time position.
I'm fine
I
with that.
so
Yeah.
want to move, and let's agree on, we should get
Do
a
you need
vote
an
on
official
this.
vote?
Yes, if you could.
Before we do that, I want to ask Mr. Broughton, our daughter is one of those 10 lifeguards, 10, and anything having to do with wages or anything, I'm for the new position. Am I conflicted to do
Yep.
that? If
Well,
my-
I think certainly anything to do with wages, you would be.
Wait,
I'm not sure if the new position.
I'll be safe and abstain, but yeah, I think hiring a lifeguard,
Yep.
if our aquatic center costs $3 million to operate, it needs to be fully operational. And I am going to abstain just to remove any shadow of a doubt that I'm biased in that in any respect. But that the facility needs to be fully operational, and if in the short term that is a position, and we'll see how that goes, and then you might be before us, in 6 months from now and saying, well, that helped, but.
So we need another one?
Are we still gonna keep the pool closed on Sundays with this new position? Okay. I moved, I would like to approve this, so we'll make a motion to approve the new full-time position.
Second.
Motion in a second.
It's on the table. I'll be abstaining too, even though my kids don't work there right now. They do.
They work there.
And they can in the summer. I have a graduate and a soon-to-be graduate, so I'm sure they'll unfortunately be moving on because they've enjoyed working at the aquatic center, and they've learned a lot there and had a lot of responsibility, met many lifelong friendships there. But I'll be abstaining as well.
Okay.
And I gotta tell you, she's the kindest girl too.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Let me ask one question before we go here. If we hire a full-time person, will that person have any additional responsibilities like recruiting or scheduling?
Maybe later down the road, Councilman Albert, but right now we need we're gonna hire them to sit in the guard chair, and that's their only job.
That's it, okay.
okay, very good. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Councilman Bishop. Councilwoman Hicks.
Hi.
Councilman Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilman Showalter.
Abstain.
Councilman Stites.
Abstain.
So that is 3-0, but that is a quorum of the council members that are present. So I would say that the motion would pass. Now, if you need
You will have to vote.
no, I don't have to.
No, it's majority.
We have a majority
Oh,
of the
we did?
council present. We have
Oh, okay.
we have 5 council people and had three
3.
approvals, 2 abstentions.
So you voted, right?
No,
So it's 3-0.
I hadn't voted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's
You and
because
Mr.
there is
Bishop and
less. Yeah, I got it.
Mr. Hubbard voted
I'm
in
sorry, it's
favor.
hard to see over there, you know?
Okay.
We've thrown out some differentials and things like that, but I just want to throw this out there. I don't want to create a conversation or a rabbit hole with this. Have you guys discussed with Sergio to see if any of the swimmers during the off season, I know they swim year round now, but if they would have any desire to fill those small gaps in the off season, has there been any discussion like that with them?
There has, and you're right, they don't have an off-season, and there's also some limits that they put on those athletes
Yeah.
for working hours, and remember, they're at the aquatic center morning and afternoon, so.
Well, I'm just bringing it up because he came to council and said if there's anything he can do, and I'm calling him out on that. And that was 2 years ago, right?
Well,
So I'm glad I remembered at least that part. But he was a great person, and he's a terrific coach.
And I don't know whether you've had time to have any response. We had a gentleman from Virginia Tech that is over a lot of the student services over there, and he sent out an email to 187 college students that were returning asking if you're interested in a lifeguard position to contact Terry. And I don't know whether you've heard anything yet or not, but I may ask him to send it out again.
Yeah, we've done so many different things, I have a whole list of things that we've been trying to do to recruit and get out into the community at the university.
Did you approach the lifeguards at Ridgewood and the lifeguard at Rosa Peters Playground
Yes,
about coming on board?
Seth is on the aquatic advisory board for the New York Valley, and she sent out a flyer, the summer's not over, we're still hiring at the aquatic center to everyone, all the outdoor.
Or the Frog Pond or any of those other places?
Here is another suggestion. I know Virginia Tech has a large amount of students that are applying on the monthly basis, from what I heard from some people that work at the rescue squad in Blacksburg. And they were saying that the waiting list that they have is so large. Is there a way that we can even do that for not just to recruit rescue squad people, but also for the aquatic center? I think that we're losing an opportunity to get these people to come here to Christiansburg to be able to actually get paid to be saving lives.
Yeah, because I believe Blacksburg's fully volunteer, is that correct? They don't pay their squad members?
And they
I
have,
think she said there's a waiting list.
there is a waiting list to get in positions for the rescue squad.
I would
They have
almost-
that many people.
I think that's a great idea. I think
And-
that Joe or Chief Hanks, would you guys mind reaching out on Terry's behalf to see if some of those people who are on those waiting lists for the fire or rescue in Blacksburg would be willing to get trained up and start their first responder careers at the aquatic center, and then hopefully when something opens up, they can pop over.
Yeah, we can reach out
Thank you.
to Chief English.
That'd be
All right.
great.
Thank you.
Very good.
You know, one other thing I was thinking about, maybe the guards that you have there, maybe if they recruited another guard to get a bonus, a $25 bonus or something like that for signing up somebody. I'm not sure if that would be worthwhile or not.
25, maybe 200. Maybe it's
Well, I think if we went to a sign-up bonus or a reward for signing up a lifeguard, they would have to at least perform in the position at least 6 months before that would come out with that incentive plan for them.
Or 3 months.
Don't we have something in place like that, I think, after 3 months or something like that? Do we have anything like that?
1 year, I think. Isn't it?
1 year? Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something we can also look into.
Interesting idea.
Everything's on
Well,
the plate.
I thought about it for Public Works. If they come in and they work favorably for 6 months, there could be a $500 or $1,000 sign-on bonus, but we've not discussed that. I don't know whether it's an incentive to, I know I think we hired one guy last month and he quit this month. So you don't know what you're getting, but there could be some incentive there. That's food for discussion down the road. Very good. Any other, wait a minute, council reports. Well, I'd like to first thank the rescue squad. Well, I should say the recreation, town manager, what do you got?
Yeah, I thought you
Well, I'll just point out the event Saturday night was nice, the Rockin' Main Street, and this weekend we've got Wilderness Trail Festival.
Oh, wow.
Reed?
Nothing to report, thanks, man.
Any other staff here? Well, other staff here, but anybody got anything to say? All right. Well, I would like to thank the Recreation Department Special Events Committee, the Police Department, Fire Rescue, and especially Public Works for such a wonderful event this past Saturday night. I would say we had between 2,500 and 3,000 people down there throughout the night. It was very well received. I even got a Facebook post from the band Lynn Avenue thanking us for letting them come to Christiansburg, and so they'd like to come back. So I think that's a good thing. But I thought I'd like to reach out to Brad and thank him for a very moving tribute to the first responders and veterans on Saturday evening. I thought it was well received, and so that's just typical of the way our departments intermingle and work with each other, and how they get the job done. But I was amazed, the first ever combined color guard, fire and police. That was pretty good. That was an unusual thing for us, but it was a great evening. The weather was perfect. So with that, I'll move on to Mr. Stipes.
Okay, I failed to mention this at the last meeting, but it's probably just as well because Mike Kelly is here, our engineering department head. But as we all know, and to let the public know, that town of Christiansburg was recognized by the Virginia Department of Transportation for the second year in a row, which has never happened, as the locality of the year. And what that means is that our staff is committed and is executing the many millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in transportation enhancement projects throughout the town. And just during my time on council and seeing, to look around and see the benefits of the proactiveness of our staff and our Bikeaway Walkway Committee. But I wanted to it's a shout out to the town as a whole, but especially to Mr. Kelly and his staff for taking on these responsibilities, because they have a shoestring staff, and I work for a lot of localities, and I know that they're lean and mean, And they commit to these projects and get them done, and to be recognized by VDOT as the locality of the year in the Salem District. 14 counties and 5 cities, including places like Roanoke, and quiet little Christiansburg is won twice in a year, so or twice back-to-back awards. So they're to be commended, and we have a real benefit, millions of dollars come in because of that. Thank you.
And I believe that award is for the projects that come in on time and on budget. So that's a feather that we can do that.
It's amazing.
Mr. Snipes, anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Showalter.
None.
Mr. Hubbard.
You know, I know the people who are watching and people who are here tonight have all had their vaccine shots. And I hate to keep begging on this, but Montgomery County here is still sitting at around 50%. 50% of the people in this county have not received their shots. And I'm not sure if you saw it in the Roanoke Times today. They said that people who are unvaccinated are 4.5 times more likely to be infected by the virus, and 10 times more likely to be hospitalized, and 11 times more likely to die because of the virus. And so I just encourage everybody to have their shots and get this in so we can put this thing to an end.
Thank you. Mr. Bishop?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Hicks?
Yeah, I want to say that I totally agree as far as the great event that we had on September 11. Seeing all of these organizations getting, well, not organizations, but our town coming together for something like that, and that was the one event that really made us all Americans. And I think after 20 years is definitely it's hard to believe that it's been 20 years. And I know a lot of places in Salem and almost all around us, there were events to celebrate that day as a memorial. And I think that even though there were so many around us, that there were so many people that showed up to the downtown of Christiansburg to pay their respects and to say thank you to the rescue men, the firemen, everybody that has given their lives for us. And that wasn't just 20 years ago, that is happening today too. The fire department that we have in Christiansburg is absolutely phenomenal. We have a rescue squad that we cannot ask for a better one. We got a rescue squad in between the fire departments and everything else, and the police departments. We're really blessed to live in this community that is so peaceful. Another thing that I wanted to thank, I actually wanted to thank the marketplace for doing an amazing job with the landscaping. As you drive around the new marketplace, they have planted trees to cover the stormwater pond. They have planted flowers all around all the buildings and all the new entrances and things like that. That's really attractive to see. And I think they have done a really good job with that.
Yeah, they have. Incidentally, First Watch, the newest restaurant, opened Monday. I met my breakfast club there for breakfast this morning, and it is quite good. Sandro's, owned by the Sal Puglisi's family in Radford, have opened Sandro's Pizza. And I'm not sure, we're somewhere along the line how far we are with Jersey Mike's, but I know that they've got a sign on the building, so I think they're working on it too. So that was one of the promises that Mr. Rector made to us when he came, was I will bring you 7 restaurants that you don't have in town now, and he has fulfilled that deed. That's good.
He's revitalized the area.
It's and I've been impressed. I've sampled all of the restaurants that are there now. They all do a very good job. But every time I go in one, I see Mr. Stipes and his wife. So there you go. Okay. Is there any other business to come before council?
Randy, anything about the food grocery store?
Basically, I think the holdup has been getting their mechanical equipment, but they do plan on opening very soon.
Yeah, it's a $1.2 million piece of equipment that's on back order, I think, right now. So anyway. All right, any other business to come before council? Then we will be adjourned. Thank you all for coming out.